Okay, are we okay to
We're fine.
start?
Yes, please.
Lovely. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening. Welcome to Rochford District Council's remote review committee meeting. Welcome to anyone that's watching via the live stream on YouTube. Agenda item number 1 is apologies for absence. We have none. Agenda item number 2 is substitute members. There are none. Item number 3, non-members attending. Sonia, do you have a list of those that you could read out?
Yes, of course. We have councillors FD, Wootton, Belton, Rowe and Williams.
Lovely. Thank you, Sonia. Agenda item number 4, which is minutes of the meeting held on the 1st of December 2020. My thanks to Councillor Sperrin for chairing that meeting in my absence. Are members happy for me to sign those minutes?
Agreed.
I think, yep, there's agreements and lots of thumbs up. So I'm assuming from that they are happy. If anybody's unhappy, please raise your hand. Councillor Mrs. Mason.
I'm not unhappy. I raised my hand on the other item on non-members attending, but you obviously didn't notice, Mr. Chairman. So if I could revert back to that, I'd just like some clarification. The review committee conventionally, I'm glad we've got the legal officer here, I'm sure she can clarify this, does not allow portfolio holders onto it, yet we have portfolio holders as non-members attending, and normally that would only happen if they were presenting a report. As far as I'm aware, they're not. Could someone clarify and confirm that we are operating within the Constitution? The whole idea is that the review committee can scrutinise the work of portfolio holders, so obviously they're not allowed to be on the committee.
Thank you, Councillor Mrs. Mason. Angela Law, is that a question that you can answer for us, please?
Chairman, they are visiting members of this committee and that is allowed. They are not sitting as official members of this committee.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 5, which is to receive declarations of interest, including any whipping declarations. I believe I may have to declare an interest in one of the items. It is only briefly mentioned under the key decisions document regarding the Crown Hill toilets, by virtue of the fact that I am a member of Rayleigh Town Council. I don't know if that's correct or not, but I think it should be. Councillor Robin Dray.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm also a member of Rayleigh Town Council, but I'd like to declare an interest in as much as I'm acquainted with a member of the public who are interested in the possible lease of those premises. So I think that I should declare an interest for that purpose.
Thank you, Councillor Dray. Councillor Sperring.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, like some of the other colleagues on this committee, I'm also a member of Rayleigh Town Council like yourself.
Thank you, Councillor Sperring. Any other declarations at all? It doesn't appear to be.
Yeah, Councillor Milne, I'm a member of Rayleigh Town Council.
Thank you, Councillor Milne. Okay, so moving on to item number 6 this evening, which is the COVID-19 Lessons Learned report. We're here to consider the report of the Acting Managing Director, well, actually not the Acting Managing Director any longer, with a further report to consider. There are several attendees here this evening for this item. Before I hand over to Angela Hutchins on this item, I wanted to start by putting on record my thanks, and I'm sure the thanks of members of the review committee, to the staff at Rochford District Council who continue to work tirelessly under very difficult and exceptional circumstances. I believe, and quite rightly so, that there are many critical and key workers who deservedly receive public recognition and thanks for the hard work that they continue to undertake during these difficult times. And I also believe that there are other critical and key workers who unfortunately don't always receive the same thanks and recognition for their hard work. And I personally feel that often council staff around the country, and more importantly here at Rochford District Council, are somewhat overlooked. I think it's fair to say that, and I'm sure that members would agree, that councils are operating under extremely challenging circumstances, and it's thanks to the staff and officers at Rochford District Council and their continued hard work and commitment that all of us within the district continue to experience minimal disruption to our day-to-day lives in respect of council managed activities and operations. So many thanks to you all. The only reason I'm mentioning that now is because I didn't want it to come across as an afterthought. Councillor Mrs Mason, I can see you've raised your hand.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. It's just before we go on to the report, I've just got a query of protocol. I'm having to use the council website.
Out of my phone.
And, sorry? I'm having to use the council website, and the report that we're discussing today is marked confidential. I'm not sure if it's on the website in error, or if alternatively it's marked confidential in error. As far as I'm aware, we didn't make confidential reports public, but just a matter of to be cleared up before we proceed, if you don't mind. Okay,
thank you for making us aware of that, Councillor Ms Mason. Angela, is that something that I can refer over to you?
Yes,
just to clarify.
By all means, Chairman. Yes, the watermark should have been removed before publication, so apologies to the committee that didn't happen. The document, had it been confidential, would have been on pink. It is not. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Angela, for clarifying that. Angela, to be honest, I'm going to hand over to you now anyway. Thank you for drafting the report, which I hope members have all had a chance to read. In usual style, Angela, if I could ask you just to brief members, make them aware of any points that you specifically want to highlight to them, and then answer any questions. I will just let members know that I did submit some questions to Angela ahead of the meeting. I didn't actually realise, Angela, how many questions I had actually submitted to you. So I am very grateful for you for answering all of those prior to the meeting. And there are a couple that I know you've asked me to mention to other officers here this evening, which I will do. But Angela, if I can hand over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Members, it is fitting that this report comes before you on the day that we enter into national lockdown. Back in September, I prepared the first report, which I said would be in a series of reports, and this follow-up is the second. It is inevitable that there will be more. I have tried to capture all the feedback provided by members at the committee back in September, but at the same time keeping the report legible. And members will understand that the report is, of course, not exhaustive. Thank you, Chairman, for your kind words earlier, and I'm grateful to colleagues from across the council who've assisted me with the preparation of this report, and the members of the leadership team who are here this evening to answer questions that members will have. Chairman, if I may, I'd like to echo your thanks and take the opportunity to thank all members of staff who have worked and continue to work so hard to deliver the council's response to COVID-19. We are a very small authority, and I'm proud to say that we've held our own compared to others over the last 9 months. And as we prepare for the most challenging months yet to come, the staff of the council will continue to work together with colleagues from health, blue light services, faith and community sectors, local and central government, and of course the military to beat COVID-19. I'm quite sure that there are any number of things that we could have done better. And in the spirit of continuous improvement, all constructive feedback is welcome. This document, the outbreak response plan is now is live, and we are working towards it. We're back in national lockdown, so we are not quite where we were in April because we know more. We're better rehearsed and we're better prepared than we were in April. But this time it is more complicated for us as we are managing logistics of testing and vaccination as we play our part in the national rollout of those programmes. But lessons continue to be learned, and we will continue to report to this committee for as long as the committee sees fit. There are the report is lengthy, and I have hopefully organised it in a way so that it is as legible as possible. And I will defer to colleagues from across the leadership team to answer some specific questions. But Chairman, I think if I could perhaps just leave it there.
Thank you, Angela. Members, usually I would straight away ask if anybody had any questions. As I did mention earlier, I did raise a few questions, or quite a few questions actually, to Angela ahead of the meeting, and a couple of them she has asked me to refer them to her colleagues. So if members wouldn't mind, I'm just going to ask a couple of those now, and then I will revert back to other members for their questions. This is a question for Dawn Tribe, actually. Dawn, 3.4 of the report, I asked Angela about the reasoning behind a third-party company carrying out the activities that are mentioned in that report. And to be honest, Angela has given me quite a comprehensive answer, but she has finished it this evening by just saying that outsourcing solution, Dawn Tribe can speak more on this item this evening. I just wondered if you could perhaps just touch on that for us.
Yeah, I think this is this where you're talking about the hybrid mail?
That's correct.
That's right, yes,
Yep.
sorry.
Yeah, so the hybrid mail is something we have actually done in the past, but on a very small scale actually. And we have thought about that we should be actually doing a lot more of this hybrid mail. Now, when COVID happened, we realised that there are quite a number of printing jobs, and I think they have been put into this report about what they are, that needs to have some staff interaction into actually printing and enveloping. So we've had a look at some external help in being able to do that remotely. So basically what it will be is that in Word, which is the easiest way of doing it, you'll literally be able to, where you've got your letter, you composed your letter, you'll be able to click it and you'll be able to then send it off to a third party who will post it for you. Not unusual, a lot of councils are already doing it, and we've taken advice from those councils, and under a framework of procurement, we've gone through that process. We will be saving money by doing that with our franking, and potentially we think we're going to be saving around about £10,000 in our current postage budget. And there'll be obviously some other soft sort of savings as well. There'll be some staff savings. There'll be some savings on our paper, envelopes, and we just think this is quite a viable thing to do. And given that people are at home, when we actually do set this up, they'll be able to simply click the button from where they are and be able to print it to a third party. So we won't need to have staff on site to actually do that printing for them.
Okay, lovely, thank you. Dawn, whilst you're unmuted, if I can just ask you a couple of other questions, just with Angela's pointed in your direction.
Yeah.
I wondered if you could just provide members with an update on the VoIP, VoIP, the system. It was due, I think it's scheduled for the 11th of January. And Angela has mentioned this is a new contract which replaced the existing switchboard contract, and just said that you would perhaps be able to update members a little bit more on that.
Yep, absolutely can. Yes, so the VoIP is the Voice over IP, which is a new telephone system. We've been working on this project for a few months now. It's something that was brought forward that we were always going to do. It wasn't going to be until next year. We're at the point now where the officers have had training, and we are able to phone out on our laptop, so which is called a soft phone. So we're able to phone out to people. We're not quite at the point yet where we can accept calls. That's the next stage that we are working on. What we have to do is migrate our current telephone numbers so that we can retain those, so that we didn't have to have new telephone numbers that we'd had to advertise for, obviously, the public to phone into. So we've retained our telephone numbers, but we're reliant on a third party, our current third party contractors, to actually help our new provider to actually migrate those numbers across. It's been a little bit tricky, I will say, and the 11th of January, we thought and we were hoping that we would be able to go completely live on the 11th of January, but because they haven't been able to provide us with engineers that have been able to do the migration, we're now having to push that back to the end of January. So, we are reliant on the current provider to actually give us some resources to be able to do that. We are pushing back on them, and I've had a conversation with the project team today. And so yes, that's where we are. But we have actually rolled it out so that we are able to actually make telephone calls from our laptops ourselves. And that again, and I have discussed it with a couple of other members actually, that we will have savings, and the potential savings on that on the telephone system is around 20,000 on my current telephone budget. And the contract, we're actually on a framework. So the framework is a 2-year plus 2 years should we want to continue with the current provider, who are actually Ring Central, who are a major leading telephone operator.
Okay, lovely, thank you. So by the time the next report comes out, hopefully that will all be in place, and hopefully staff would have got used to that now.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, and one last quick question before I go to members for yourself, Dawn. 3.27 of the report, we're talking about laptops, and I asked Angela if all laptops had now been delivered and if any more were needed or ordered. Just wondered if you could clarify that.
Yes, we've offered RDC Rochester Council laptops to all members, and as far as I know, those that have wanted to have them have now been rolled out. In the beginning of COVID, it was a little bit of an issue, and I think we've gone over that before. Was with us trying to order them, we had staff that needed them to work off site, and we had members. But I think now we have rolled them out. But if there is anybody who didn't in the beginning say that they would like to have a laptop when they were offered, then please come back to me or to IT, and we will absolutely sort you out and give you an IDC laptop if that's what you would require.
Lovely, thank you, Dawn. I'll let you go for the moment. Okay, good evening, Councillor Wilkinson. Can you hear me? I can't hear you, Councillor Wilkinson. I don't know about other members.
Is that better? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I sat on the button. So just picking up from what Dawn Tribe said, I've had a problem with this laptop. This is my personal laptop, and the sound's not been working too well. So I did actually ask for a council one, because there's been a couple of meetings I've not been able to take part in. So I don't know if you could add my name, please, Dawn, to the list of those needing them. I'd appreciate it. Chairman, moving to the report, I echo entirely not just the sentiments, but the words that you said as well. And I have got a couple of concerns regarding the report, but I want to make it clear they are regarding the report. And this is in no way me pointing fingers at the council, because I don't think that's fair. I do accept the fact that this pandemic has been like none other that any of us have lived through. And I recognise that. My concern is actually going to echo something I said the last time this report came to this committee. And I think that I'm going to try and think of the correct word here, because I'm not going to say it's not truthful. I don't mean that at all. I think it's economical, should we say, with some of the issues that the council has faced and the way in which it's dealt with it. And those are the issues that I would like to pick up, if I may. And this is not a criticism on the council. It's just a criticism really on the report, I suppose. The item 3 talks about the printing of documents. Now, I was very pleased to hear what Dawn's just said to you, because this was an issue. The item itself in the report basically says, yes, they didn't do it, but as soon as they could, they intended to. It was not a true representation of what actually happened. What actually happened, and I did highlight this last time, that we were having at the time at least 3 group leader meetings per week, every single week. And at every single one of those meetings, I highlighted to the then managing director and the then leader of the council, neither of whom are in the current positions, that the council, instead of continuing with its practice of posting letters to neighbours for planning consideration, when the whole nation was being told to stay at home, it decided to post a sign outside the relevant address, thereby nobody seeing it. Now, I raised this time and time again, and was told, no, we're not going to change. Not going to change. It's in fact, Mr. Scrutton's words were, it's a nicety that we don't have to do. Those were his words. At no point At no point did either the then leader or the then managing director say to me, this is only a temporary thing, don't worry about it. Once we get this up and running, it'll be back in place, which is what the report tends to imply to me. There was just a point blank refusal. So I don't think that part of the report is representative of how this council performed in relation to the printing of documents. And I accept and recognise why the managing director now has included it in there, because I raised it last time and she's made reference to that. But I still don't think it's representative to what actually happened at the time. The next point I'd like to talk about is emergency planning, which was another area I mentioned at the last meeting. That I said that in my opinion, emergency planning was woefully inefficient. Now, it's interesting to read the report because it says at paragraph 3.6 that the top national risk identified for pandemics nationally was identified as a pandemic influenza. Now, accepting I don't have a medical degree, I don't think there's a huge amount of difference between pandemic influenza and what we're currently suffering. And I certainly don't think that if we did have a pandemic influenza, the government's reaction will be any different to what it currently is. In other words, lockdown, everybody work from home. So with that in mind, you then have to ask the question, well, exactly what emergency planning was there for pandemic influenza? Because this was identified nationally as the top risk. So what did we have in place? And the reason I ask that is because the answer to me would appear as though we didn't have anything in place, because if we did, it would work seamlessly for COVID. The fact the viruses are different doesn't mean to say that the strategy we would take as a council would be different. And I don't think that's representative either in any way. And it even says at paragraph 3.18, it became clear that the council's switchboard hardware and software was incompatible for remote use. How do we get to that stage? If we were planning for pandemic influenza in our emergency planning, we should have had something for remote usage, but we didn't. Paragraph 4.9 talks about what went well, a very valuable part of the report. What about what didn't work so well? That's not in the report. What about the identified areas that didn't work well? And the reason I think this is vitally important is I'm not going to ask this as a question because I know it's a fact. I know this council wants to learn from the good things and the not so good things that happened during this pandemic so that we can improve and move forward. How are we ever going to learn unless we can admit failings? Unless we can put our hands up and say, do you know what? We didn't do this as well as we should. And I don't think this report says that. There's one other thing I'd like to mention as well, and this isn't even mentioned in the report. And this is something I would like to ask, if possible, if this could be taken forward to form part of our newly formed emergency planning or whatever's going to come out from this. And that's staff and member welfare. Now, at the beginning of this pandemic, at the same week we went into national lockdown, there was an investment board meeting which took place in the chamber at the Civic Suite. Within days after that, and forgive me because I can't remember exactly how this happened, but I think it was through rumour mill, jungle drums, whatever you want to say, it became known that another councillor, who I will not name, not from my group, had become unwell. There was a suggestion that that councillor potentially was suffering the symptoms of the coronavirus. This was hushed, to say the least. The particular member didn't have a test. Now, that's probably down to the processes that were in place at the time. But that was never communicated to members. It was never communicated to staff, as far as I'm aware. It should have been communicated to all members who were present at that meeting and officers who were present at that meeting. A member has displayed symptoms similar to coronavirus. You may want to consider isolating. You may want to consider your friends and family. If you've got vulnerable friends and family, you may want to consider getting testing. That was not done. That, I'm afraid, is a failing that should have been done, and it was hushed up at the time. And I would respectfully ask that in any report that moves forward from this, that is included as a policy decision that this council will now do, and it makes it policy that we have to do. And I think I'll leave it at there, if I may. I just want to make it clear, Chairman, that is. I hope it's clear. I'm not picking holes what the council's done. I just think the report is not balanced enough because, yeah, we've done some great things, but there are some other areas that are not so good, and I don't think the report covers those as well. And how are we going to learn unless we do? Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. Just going back to your first point, Dawn, have you made a note that Councillor Wilkinson may require the use of a council laptop?
Yep, I do have that, yes.
And you'll be in touch with him regarding that?
Yep,
Lovely,
absolutely
thank
will,
you.
yes. Yep,
Right,
will do.
thank you. Councillor Wilkinson, your point regarding 3.6 of the report is actually something I raised with Angela earlier today. Angela, I don't know if you've got your response to me to hand, because actually your answer to me was quite informative. I wondered whether or not that may be useful for members to hear that.
Yes, Chairman. I think the important thing to understand here is in relation to the National Risk Register, which cascades across the whole of the UK response and through the Essex Resilience Forum through to us as part of our responsibilities under the Civil Contingencies Act. So when pandemic influenza has been on the risk register previously, it's been in the context of things like SARS and avian flu, so both of which are epidemiologically very different viruses to COVID-19, and the impacts of which were primarily linked to the health sector. So our corporate risk register includes and deals with mitigations in the event that staff and resources are negatively impacted by seasonal flu and variations thereof. But the scale and speed of COVID-19 and including its mutations is unprecedented. And the fact that it's not localized but global also means that all the rules effectively have been rewritten. So the question was around why we weren't prepared for it. My response is that we were prepared for it insofar as the infrastructure was in place to support a sub-regional and national response through the local resilience forums and through the through the UK government response. But nobody fully understood the impact of this pandemic back in March, April of last year, and arguably they are still learning today. So I have to push back and say that it wasn't a lack of preparation, that everything would not have gone seamlessly, because we had business continuity plans in place for managing pinches and fluctuations in staff and resource management. We did not have a plan in place for the complete decant of the entire office in less than 10 days, which is what we had to do when national lockdown came into place. And I take the point in relation to reporting of illnesses, and I can't comment on the situation that Councillor Wilkinson has articulated because I don't know anything about that. But what I can say is at the beginning of the pandemic, things like reporting, contact tracing, and isolation hadn't even been thought of at that point, and so it was still very much in its early stages. And what we were doing was, and continue to do, is to respond using information provided to us from government and from the colleagues in Public Health England through the Essex Resilience Forum, who provide us with the information to provide a coordinated response across the whole of Greater Essex. So we as Rochford District Council have a unified approach along with colleagues across the entire public sector to make sure that we're responding in exactly the same way. Chairman, if I can come back in relation to the point around the planning consultation letters, apologies if my inelegant drafting in paragraph 3.1 has set hairs running. It's certainly not my intention. The reference to temporary meant that it was it's not a situation which subsists to this point. It was for a limited time period only. I accept, because I have no reason to doubt any conversations that may have not happened with the previous managing director, but the fact remains that it wasn't a decision that was taken and that still subsists. It is in fact actually one for a limited period of time, and that's what I meant by the use of the word temporary.
Thank you. Councillor Wilkinson, I can see you're indicating to come back. So that's
very briefly.
that,
yeah, just very briefly. Thank you very much, Chair. Angela, thank you for clearing that up regarding the pandemic influenza. And I apologise because I will learn until the day I die, and I didn't realise the difference between the two illnesses. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I think I've understood you. The member of staff that I was referring to, that at the time that happened, nationally, we were being told to inform people we've been in contact with. So that was in place. I accept the fact that as an authority, you may not have known about it. So that's not critical of the authority. I would like that to be policy moving forward. But we all knew at the time that because the government was telling us, you must inform people, you must do this, must do that. So everybody that was aware of that particular person's illness knew that everybody should have been told at the time. The final thing was, oh yes, the printing of the letters. Yes, I accept what you're saying regarding that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. Angela, did you want to come back on that at all, or?
No, nothing further. Thank you, Chairman.
Angela, just whilst we're touching on this subject, would it be fair to say, with regards to planning, because obviously I did have some concerns about the planning that was in place. Do you feel that government demands and guidelines did impact on how well prepared the council could be? Because my thoughts are that you could plan as much as you possible, but if at short notice you're being asked to do this, meet this criteria, achieve this, how do you feel that impacted on how the council was able to respond?
Very, very much so. So our emergency planning is historically has been linked around, as I say, business continuity. So it's about dealing with temporary losses of staff and or resource, so temporary risks that happen, and whether that's because it's a natural disaster like flooding, or it's an IT outage, or there is if there was an incident at the airport, for example, that would have a sudden, unexpected and tangible impact, but that was temporary in nature. And the whole point around emergency planning is that you stand something up, you go into emergency recovery mode, you deal with the situation, and then you put things back to normal as quickly as possible. And the whole of emergency planning, and every resilience forum across the country has been working on that basis. What is so different with with COVID-19 is that we are 9 months on and we're still not at the end of it. So that the emergency continues and it fluctuates as new things come and go. And we are, as an entire nation, learning as the epidemiology and the science evolves, and as we understand more and more about not only how the disease is transmitted, but how people respond to it and the impacts of it in terms of individual health and traits amongst particular demographics. So certainly at the very beginning of the pandemic, when we were all just washing our hands because that was all we were told to do. We were following guidance from government. There was a lot of misinformation, a lot of information that couldn't be corroborated, and lots of opinion being offered about, and you'll remember the news was full of pictures of China and Italy, and it didn't seem to have really resonated here. What when I look back on it now, I can see that we stood up as part of the Essex Resilience Forum. A strategic coordinating group was stood up by the Chief Constable with partners from across the entire system, and we began to plan our response to this emerging threat. And I think that we have tacked along government guidance as it's come along. We've challenged where we've needed to, we've escalated where we've needed to, but by working across administrative boundaries, we've coped as well as we can do, but to a certain extent, it is always going to be reactive.
Okay, thank you, Angela. Councillor Hoy.
Thank you, Chairman. I've got a few bits to say. I'll just go through them all to start with, and some are on the report and some are on the what I will call the confidential report afterwards as well, which I now know is not confidential. I just want to start with I don't want to labour the point, but there are very few business continuity plans that I've seen that don't include loss of an office, and they would include working from home in the short term at least, and the ability to do so. I accept that this was not in our plan because it clearly wasn't. I wouldn't expect us to have a continuity plan for what we've had. That's fine. I understand that. It's very, very outside of my imagination that this would have happened. But I don't understand why we didn't have a plan which included the closure of an office. I've queried this in other committees and I've been assured there was. I understand that it might have been a temporary loss of an office, maybe for a month until you get up and running somewhere else, but that would include working from home. And I clearly can't see anything of that sort, which we've been able to take from one part of our business continuity or emergency planning and put it in place here. That's all I'm going to say on the point. Going forward, I'm sure we've learnt from that. On the report itself, and bear with me because again, as normal, I'm on one screen. On the report, I'm just going to go through a few quick points on the report, which is for noting. One is, which maybe come back to me afterwards, one is the Great Wakering amenity vehicle. Can you just say what is the reason that is not possible? Why it's not possible to reinstate that? Because that's always been quite important.
Okay, sorry, Councillor Hoy, if I can just let, would that be something, Angela, you would answer? To be honest, that's a question
can I just
again.
do it once and then they come back afterwards? It'd be a lot easier, I think, that way.
Well, yeah, but if there's too many, I don't want officers.
That's what I mean. There's only a few on this
report.
report. I don't want to get onto the main confidential one. There's only 3 on this, and I've just got a few queries on the actual.
Okay, if there are 3 short ones, that's fine.
Yeah, and the next one is, and I've raised this with Angela already about this one, which is 3.29. I've said just because we're learning as we go along with 365, I actually use it within my business as well, and I know other people do, doesn't mean that we know everything. We've just learned what we need to learn to get by. So I really do believe we still do need training. It's not out of date. You still need training because there are things members will not know on that. And I think that's quite important. Okay. I've raised that previously. And then finally, on the actual report itself, it's talking about the impact of staffing, staff efficiencies, cost savings, pressures on staff. It's slightly outside of this, but I just want to raise it because it's come to my attention today that one of the things which I had thought had worked well, and I thought was still working well, was the administration of grants via the council from central government to businesses. I know the first lot of grants went out quite well. There's a further lot of grants which I understand have stuck, and no grants for businesses which are currently closed and have been closed since November. These have stuck around 2nd of December and no grants have been issued since then, and there are businesses waiting for November and December grants. And I just want that cleared up about where we are with that. And I suspect that may be down to resourcing, which is point 8 on that report. They're the main points on there. Then I've got some on the confidential local outbreak response plan. So I don't know if they want to be answered first, as you suggested, Chairman.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Hookway. With regards to your... sorry, Councillor Hoy. With regards to your question regarding the vehicle at Great Wakering, this is something I raised with Angela earlier, and she has responded to me. But she did refer possibly to Marcus, you being able to maybe address this query slightly better. Is that okay?
Yes, yeah, thank you. Okay, I can do so. I mean, it's we were keen to sort of continue the services we could. I mean, originally it stopped due to the fact that we felt that social distancing couldn't really be practiced, and therefore the risk of transmission of COVID was at high risk between those queuing to deposit waste and also the staff that help load. I mean, it's not an easy service to run at the best of times, so you're often in quite close quarters. And so the risk assessments undertaken by Suez indicated they felt that it was too high risk to continue at that time. We did speak to them about whether it could be done in a different way, and that we're willing to resource that as well if need be, you know, to address the difference. It wasn't a financial situation. It's just there seems to be no practical way of doing so safely, I think, from their conclusion from the risk assessments they undertook. I mean, certainly other councils that undertake a similar service, such as Basildon and Tendring, come to the same conclusion, because we actually did ask if Suez wouldn't do it, we did then go to other suppliers to say, would someone else be willing to do this? And again, we had one that said yes. But then again, when we actually pressed on the ability to manage the risk and demonstrate they could manage the risk of COVID successfully, they couldn't produce the documentation that I felt that we felt was satisfactory. So that's where we are at the moment. The conclusion is that we feel at the present time we cannot undertake that service safely just due to the risk of COVID. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus. Angela, with regards to training, which Councillor Hoy raised, obviously it is mentioned in the report. Did you want to come back on that? I don't know if you wanted, that's something that would still be considered. You're on mute, sorry, Angela.
Apologies. Yes, so the original training which had been which had been prepared is probably now out of date, but certainly I know that Dawn is happy to look at that again. And one of the things we have talked about is identified continuing support where necessary. So that piece of work will take place. Chairman, if I can just come back on the business continuity plans piece and about the loss of an office. So loss of IT, loss of staff and loss of an office was part of the of our business continuity plans, but what we didn't anticipate was having to decant an entire office, the whole of South Street, plus colleagues over at the Civic Suite. So we went not just from losing an office to losing all of our space and requiring everybody to remote work. So that was that's the difference, really, I think, between the event that we had planned for and the eventuality and the practicality, the reality of what we actually had to deal with. The staff costing piece in relation to grant business grant administration. If I could ask Chairman Naomi Lucas to speak to that point.
Of course. Naomi, is that okay? Lovely, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah. We certainly have been paying out grants, including the closed grant scheme, since the second national lockdown in November. We've been paying those out steadily since that point. The complexity in a number of different grant schemes has escalated since the second national lockdown, and then the Tier 4 restrictions imposed on Essex after that point. So there's several different schemes under operation now, including a scheme for businesses which were open but affected by the additional restrictions, the closed scheme which affected businesses which had to close completely, and then there was an additional restrictions grant as well, which was a more discretionary element of grant. And there's further schemes that have been just announced in the last day or so, which the council will also be seeking to pay out to businesses. But yeah, I wouldn't like members to be under the false impression that there's been a logjam in the system. We certainly have been paying out those grants steadily since they were introduced. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Naomi. Councillor Hoy, was there another?
Yeah, I just want to go back
to
onto the actual report itself, which is not confidential. I just want to think the answers. I think I don't think I will ever agree about the continuity plan, so I'll leave that there. On the point of so this is the COVID-19 local outbreak response plan, which is version 1.00. First paragraph introduction. This COVID-19 local outbreak response plan is intended to operate as a whole council business continuity plan in the event there is an increase in cases of COVID-19 in Rochester District, and as part of the council's reasonable worst case scenario planning as we approach the winter flu season. There's a couple of points. I'm going to leave a few of them. They're fairly minor. I can raise those separately. The big question I want to go to is on page 6.17, and I'll then dart around a little bit.
So this, just to clarify, this is 6.17 of the actual response plan, is it?
Yes,
not the report?
it is. Yeah.
Okay.
To address the priorities, the council will take the action set out below, and the first one is incept the RDC outbreak response team and associated meeting schedule. I want to know if this has ever met, and then from that point I can ask or not ask further questions just to save time.
Chairman, if you're happy
Angela,
for
are you
me
able
to
to?
respond. Yeah, yes, it has
Yeah.
met, and we had a meeting, our latest meeting just today.
Okay, does that meet like after the Essex Response Forum?
The Resilience Forum. So it is linked to that, although there isn't a particular battle rhythm as things currently stand. We did not incept the outbreak response team for the period of national restrictions during November because there was no increased need to do so at that time. You'll recall that government approach was that would be a fire break, for want of a better term. As we moved into Tier 4, the Tier 4 announcement was made on the 19th of December, or with effect from the 19th of December. Actually, I think it's the week before, as I've kind of lost track. But anyway, in early to mid December, the outbreak response team convened, and again, as I say, convened this morning.
So it's convened a couple of times. I'm just surprised that I, as a member, wasn't aware of it, because further down the page, it says that about the involvement of members, and it said although you might not share all information with members because it may be officially sensitive, but the council commits to transparency. I'm sorry if I have missed it, but I have not seen anything to say that this team has met even.
No, we haven't. We keep an action log and notes of the things we discuss, but there's not not minutes as such. The things that we tend to notify members of the outcomes of the meetings, and if we conclude that it's for us in terms of redeployment, for example, we would notify members that way. So it's very much driven by the actions that we decide as part of the team meeting.
But I'll take it as an overall thing, rather than take out little points from this. If I just go with the overall point, which I think would be much clearer, is that I would consider that Rochford is in the midst of a local outbreak. Hence, my question: has it met? We've been in the top 10 in the country for the numbers, a place I do not want to be. I know Holbridge alone has been over 1,600. I think Rochford has approached 2,000 cases per 100,000. Sorry, I'm not breathing. Over 100,000. I just can't see what I think it might have been appropriate to tell members that yes, we consider there is a local outbreak and the team has met. Nothing has come from it. Yeah, that's fine. But this is the transparency. This is about telling members what goes on, and this is one of the frustrations we've had over a number of years. And also this also links back to emergency planning. I noticed Councillor Jo McPherson is going to speak, and she's also raised this in review before with emergency planning about the fact that councillors are just left out of things. I assume the leader was informed that it met. I'm not sure he's on it because it doesn't say so. And this is the point. We are at a point where we have a massive local outbreak. We were amongst the first in the country to have such high figures. Yet we don't seem to have done much about it. I'm not seeing who is the emergency planning officer a permanent member of staff, for instance?
Yes, they are.
I haven't seen much of what they're supposed to be doing happening either. I've not seen the redeployment plan. I've not seen environment health being a single point of liaison for test and trace. I understand that there was a press release came out today that there's now testing available at the Mega Centre. I understood it might have been at South Street, but is that also at South Street or just at the Mega Centre now?
Councillor Hoy, if I can just interject, the overall point is,
I just think I'm not sure we're acting to the report, or if the report is being fully implemented as it should be. That's the problem.
Okay, I think members are probably gathering from that your main query is about member involvement. I think Angela could.
Sorry, Chairman, it's not member involvement. It's member involvement, but
also. Can you make the point clearer then?
I don't know if the report is being followed. I can't tell because we don't know. I've got no evidence to show that the report is being followed at all. That our outbreak plan. I don't know if our outbreak plan is being followed because no one is telling me if it is or isn't.
Okay, Angela, if you could just come back on that, please.
Yeah, so I can come back on and explain that. So as you've identified, the Essex Resilience Forum meets regularly. At the moment, we're meeting daily. Information that comes via that channel is official sensitive and therefore is not something that I am at liberty to discuss more widely. But communications channels from the Essex Resilience Forum have been prepared via the Essex Chiefs and Leaders meeting, and Councillor Neil Stock from Tendring is the chairman of that group, and he disseminates information to all members as a consequence of that. So it has been agreed that that is the primary communication channel from the Essex Resilience Forum, and the PFCC briefs members of Parliament direct. So the information that you receive via those channels is the information which I'm permitted to share. We are following the outbreak response plan, but as I say, in relation to this current situation, we've met for the first time to discuss the current situation today, and we have talked about testing as one of the key strands that we're talking about. I brief the executive every single week, sometimes more than once a week, and the information that I send out, the briefing note I send out to members and also to the public happens every Friday as well, and the version that members receive very often contains information which is not shared with the general public. In relation to testing, the information relating to the mega centre is in relation to lateral flow device tests, which is a pilot scheme being put forward by Essex County Council and in partnership with our colleagues at the mega centre to provide that venue. That is not the same as the PCR home test kits, which we are intending to operate from South Street. We are in the process of standing that up, hopefully at some point later on this week. We've been waiting for Essex County Council to confirm a go live date with us, and we're in the process of doing that. But that is something different, and that is, and there'll be communications coming out in relation to that as soon as we're able to share them.
Thank you, Angela. And just to touch on that, because again, this was something you and I discussed earlier, and I thought your response was very good. And if I can just read that out to you, the operational plan is written and composed by Rochford District Council, and it's based upon the response to the first lockdown. And I think, as you quite rightly said, it's a living document which will continue to be updated. So I don't think what we're seeing at the moment is set in stone, and I think it's probably highly likely to change, I would think, from the learning curve that the council and members are on.
Yeah, if I may, Chair, I would absolutely agree that nothing should ever be set in stone. We're learning continuously, and I hope that's the case. However, I don't see this report being put into action. And again, I don't see that members are being informed. I mean, on page 6.19, 17, elected members have an important role in the event of a local outbreak. As representatives of their local communities, they are a focal point for provision of information and provision of support and encouragement. A local outbreak is likely to cause widespread concern and possible confusion and disarray, and elected members can pass important safety information and other advice from the outbreak response team to the affected communities. All we have is information we can't let people know of from the Essex Resilience Forum or Essex County Council press releases. We don't have anything from Rochford Council or this fault, and I think we should learn from it. It doesn't seem to be very proactive at all in helping.
I think you probably raised some points that Angela and the team will take away with them and bear in mind, possibly moving forward as much as you possibly can Would that be correct, Angela, in saying that?
Yes, yes, of course. The only thing I would say is that part of the Essex Resilience Forum is that all organisations give a consistent communications message. So all of so we're tied into the Essex Communications Group. All information and assets are cascaded across the whole of the system in an identical fashion. So although it comes across as an ECC, it may come across as an ECC. Press release, actually it's also emanating from the police and from fire and from the health service and from the NHS, and we are not being proprietary in branding them RDC, because actually it's the consistency of the message that's key. And by being part of a unified approach to communications, that means that everybody across the whole of Greater Essex gets the same information. I take the point from Councillor Hoy in relation to briefing of the wider membership, but I can say to you that I have told you everything that I am able to tell you, and there is no further information at this stage that I can share. And as frustrating as that might be, it is the nature of the way in which we are managing the pandemic. As we go forward, there will be greater opportunities for members to take the community leadership role, certainly in terms of promulgating key messages around social distancing and adherence to rules. But as we get into the vaccination programme in particular, I will be looking to the elected membership to assist in becoming community ambassadors and taking that forward as part of our response.
Thank you, Angela. I'm just keen to move the question on because I can see that quite a few members have raised their hands and some have been waiting quite a while. So Councillor Hookway.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. The point I was going to raise has been touched on by Councillor Michael Hoy, but my point is a little bit more specific. It's relating to some of the money that's been cascaded down from central government and been allocated to local authorities to distribute as part of the grants schemes that have been put in place. Now, back in November, there was a scheme relating specifically or aimed at specifically the hospitality sector, and there was the ability for businesses to apply for the grant funding, and I believe it's done on a monthly basis. And the way that it's managed is on the basis of businesses in the hospitality sector that have a business address that they pay business rates on. Now, the government scheme did allow for businesses within that sector to be able to apply for grant funding that didn't have a business address, but it was a discretionary element to the scheme. And as far as I'm aware, that this council, Rochford Council, has decided not to use the discretionary element as part of this scheme, because if it does, I can't find any information on the council's website as to whether it does offer this funding to businesses that don't have a business address that pays business rates. Now,
Councillor Hook, sorry, can I just interject? Do you know the name of the scheme at all?
Not off the top of my head, but the thing is that this scheme is current and topical because the Chancellor has announced today the extension of this scheme, or a scheme which is very much similar in relation to funding up to £9,000 for businesses going forward under the current lockdown situation. Now, my question is, bearing in mind that we may well be in this lockdown period for much longer than what we were in November. Is the council going to this time implement the discretionary element and allow businesses that don't have business premises to apply for this grant funding? Now, I do have to declare an interest in this because I obviously have a business which would directly be affected by that. But I do not see why this should prevent me from asking and posing the question to the council, because there would be many other businesses and individuals who are in a similar situation. And bearing in mind this is a public meeting, they have the opportunity to find out answers to this particular question. Is obviously very relevant because people are going to be looking to seek assistance going forward, because we're in this for a considerable period of time now.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hookway. I think the first thing to do there, Sonia, if you could note Councillor Hookway's interest. I think he may have not been present when I asked originally at the beginning of the meeting for notes of interest. Naomi, I'm assuming this is a question that you're going to address, is that correct?
Thank you, Chair. So I believe the scheme that Councillor Hookway is referring to is what's been referred to as the open scheme, and it does get confusing with the number, as I said, of different schemes that have been launched by the government over this period. It wasn't specifically aimed at leisure and hospitality as the first scheme was in the first lockdown, which was specifically called sort of leisure and hospitality grant. But it was aimed at businesses that were affected by the restrictions but weren't actually forced to close down. So, for example, restaurants that could only operate, a takeaway service as opposed to a sit-in service, for example. So that they were primarily the businesses that were targeted through this open scheme. As Councillor Hookway said, there was quite strong guidance from government about it being targeted at businesses that have that were on the ratings list. The council chose to implement that scheme in line with the government guidance, which targeted it at those businesses on the ratings list. There was an element of discretion within that scheme, but because we were simultaneously also launching another scheme called the Additional Restrictions Grant, which was aimed at the more discretionary elements of the scheme, we chose to target those businesses that couldn't apply through the open scheme to the Additional Restrictions Grant. And so businesses that weren't necessarily on the ratings list, or for example were part of the supply chain, for example, that those businesses were eligible to apply for that Additional Restrictions Grant, and a number of those businesses have been successful through that scheme. In terms of the latest scheme, which government has just announced, again, that is targeted at those businesses on the ratings list, and there's very specific criteria around what size of businesses will be eligible for the different levels of grants. And we will be putting out some more communications and guidance on that particular new scheme in the next couple of days. So I hope that provides a little bit of clarity, but I do accept that the number of different schemes and the different eligibility criteria for them has made the whole process a bit confusing for some, but we have tried to be as clear as we can in our communications and on our website in terms of the eligibility for the different schemes. Thank you.
Thank you, Naomi. Councillor Hookway, you can come back if it's very quick, because, like I say, quite a few members have yet to ask their questions, so I would like to move it forward.
Yes, will do. I just wondered whether it might be possible for, if there is something that is available to businesses that don't have a business address, that need that are looking for some financial help because they are affected by the restrictions that are currently in place, that it should be a bit more promptly advertised on our website, so that it does seem that it's very difficult to locate some of this information. So I just ask that that this might be something that could be advertised a bit better, if that's possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hookway. I don't think that's specifically something you can address, Naomi, about where it's published or
I'd accept that. Thanks, Chair. That obviously there's probably always more we could do differently and better, but I would just say that we did send round the all public communications briefings at quite promptly at the time, advertising all the different schemes, and it was advertised on the face of the council's website, for example, and also there was joint communications again throughout Essex on the availability of the different schemes. So we did make every effort to try and publicise those as far as possible, but I accept there's probably always more that we can do. So thank you.
Thank you, Naomi. I understand, Marcus, did you want to come in on this item or on this question?
Only briefly so that I can ask Economic Development to make contact with Councillor Hookway to discuss his details and concerns a bit more in detail tomorrow if there's any further information he requires. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much for that. Moving on, Councillor McPherson.
Thank you, Chairman. Page 6, I'm drawing members' attention to 3.21 and 3.22. Personally, I just want to give some huge credit to all the staff who went the extra mile and are still going the extra mile, being redeployed, working unsociable hours, and also volunteering with the community hub. It also mentions the positive impact this has had on the staff. Moving forward, the head of paid service mentioned staff will assist in the rollout of, I believe, the testing kits. Just need to clarify which ones. I'm just speaking as someone who volunteered with the community hub, which I have to say was superbly well run, and most recently with the rollout of the vaccinations. Please could members be invited to volunteer again? I'm quite happy to stand, as most people know, in a high vis in a wet, cold car park. So I'm happy to lend a hand. I'm sure others will be, if only to take some pressure off of our staff who have, as I said, gone the extra mile. Also on page 11, this again will be something for the head of paid staff. The pulse surveys mentioned that's going to be rolled out. Now, these, as most people know, are shorter, more frequent surveys. So I'm presuming more will be going out. I ask because such things as compassion fatigue can take a while to emerge within staff during the pandemic. Will these surveys be anonymous? And if so, how will you identify the areas where there are issues or where support's needed? Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor McPherson. Angela, did you just want to come back on those?
Yes.
I know you and I touched on the surveys earlier, and you did explain to me about the surveys.
Yeah, so thank you to Councillor McPherson. Member volunteers are very much welcomed out, and communication will be coming out to the whole elected membership tomorrow in relation to the administration of PCR testing kits out of South Street. We're just, as I said a moment ago, firming up the logistics with ECC. I don't want to give you information that isn't factually correct. So we're just checking on those details, and as soon as we are clear, because we're expecting 5,000 tests to be delivered, and as soon as we have a delivery date and we know that we're good to go, that we will be asking for volunteers, and with those committee dates, as we'll want to put together a rota as quickly as possible. So thank you for that. Volunteering across the membership, I think, is something that and across the organisation, I think, is something that we're all very proud to stand behind. And Councillor McPherson, you're absolutely right in identifying that vaccination going forward is likely to be a large draw, and the community support that was provided for the hub, we're hoping that again will rally round to support community vaccination programmes going forward in coming weeks. Our staff surveys, yes, the pulse surveys are intended to give that short, sharp intervention to take the temperature of an organisation. The initial pulse survey was anonymous, so ongoing pulse surveys would be anonymous to encourage people to be as frank in their responses as they feel that they would like to be. Certainly, the first pulse survey that we did had a very high response rate, so we were very encouraged by that. I'm conscious of organisational fatigue. I'm conscious of issues in relating to mental health and isolation as staff continue to adjust to the difficult conditions that we're all operating under. And certainly the design of the next pulse survey is something that HR colleagues and I are working on to make sure that we give opportunities for staff members to identify those and put in place the mitigations that we can support them with. We do continue to signpost with our mental health first aiders, the employee assistance programme and pastoral calls, which myself and colleagues from HR have been carrying out, and all line managers and assistant directors take the time to work with colleagues to make sure that they are that they're doing okay, and that it's okay to not be okay. And particularly as we come into this next lockdown, and many of our staff are coping with school-aged children at home, we have revised our list of critical workers who are entitled to send their children into school if the schools are in fact open, of course, and we're providing letters of support to those working parents who would like to take advantage of that opportunity. So that's what we will continue to do.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor McPherson. I'm for one grateful that my children at home, because I've never been so good at maths in all my life. It's been a big learning curve for me teaching from home, I can tell you. Councillor Mrs Mason.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I'd like to endorse the comments that you made as Chairman at the beginning of the meeting regarding the work that has been done by our many staff members under extremely difficult circumstances, and I'm pleased to hear the acting managing director say that they have got fatigue and mental health alerts, and they're taking that into account. I'm sure our staff need that support after such a length of time. But I also roundly support the comments made on the report by Councillor Wilkinson. In my view, the Council's response to the situation has been suboptimal. For example, the lack of emergency planning demonstrates, I know it's been raised before by Councillor Hoy and I believe Councillor Wilkinson, but to hear that there were no plans to decant the office in 10 days, when emergency planning, by its very nature, should have plans to decant the office in a day. I'm old enough to remember when we had copious bomb scares, and there were always, in the organisations I worked for, plans to decant the office and work from home within a matter of hours, let alone 10 days. It has been raised in this meeting before, and I think that's something that I'm concerned that wasn't done. But I think we've covered that, and I'm sure that the improvements will be made in the future. The acting managing director said there's a lot we could have done better. Yeah, I think there's a lot we could have done better. There's a lot we've done very well, and we have to acknowledge that. And we also have to acknowledge where we've failed and where we've perhaps just fallen short. This isn't a blame. This is to find out things that we could do better. So we should look and say, what have we done very well? What have we done badly? But most importantly, what do we need to improve, and where do we need to improve to do better? And until we accept as an organisation that we're not perfect, we do make mistakes, we do fail, that improvement is going to fall short. I would like to see in future reports some more objective information, and I would also like to see some more, should I say, proactive ideas rather than reactive. And again, back to Councillor Hoy, I do think that there could be an increase in transparency. But those are minor points. The major point is that we must learn from this situation. We mustn't assume that any criticism is negative. Criticism is constructive and we should be using it to improve. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mrs Mason. I'm sure that your points and those of Councillor Hoy's will be taken into consideration, and hopefully we'll see that come through in future reports.
Thank you.
Councillor Belton, I did have you down to speak, but I can see you're no longer indicated. Do you still want to speak, or?
I wasn't sure. I remembered I'm no longer a member of Review, so I didn't think I could speak, so I lowered my hand again.
Thank you. So I wasn't sure if you were coming in on a point there or a point of order. Councillor Spearing.
Thank you, Chairman. Angela Hutchins has just answered quite comprehensively one of the issues I was going to raise, because I believe Councillor Wilkinson, when he first spoke, touched on staff well-being, but she has subsequently highlighted what is being done as almost routine procedures now within the organisation with staff working at home. So that bit's been answered. Also, I would say, and this is again with regard to the grant situation and its passing on to businesses, from experience, I would suggest that the grants that should have been sent out by the district council have been sent out promptly and efficiently. It may not always tie in with the dates that some businesses want to receive the money, and I know it is dependent on when the money comes from government, but from our experience, or my experience, this has been prompt, and there has been very little issues with regarding to any claims or any procedural matters. So I would just like to compliment the council for that. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Spearing. Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Chair. I only wanted to come back on one very quick question, actually. It was something I picked up on from something Angela was saying, and this has been touched on again since, so I may have misunderstood. The testing kits that were mentioned from South Street, I originally put my hand up because I was going to say, whilst I accept, of course, the council officers are in South Street, the vast majority of the district lives on the western side over here, Rayleigh, Hockley and Holbridge. And obviously we need to, at the time of lockdown, minimise people's travelling. So we should try and get somewhere over the west side of the district to keep these tests as well. That's been slightly superseded, and I may have misunderstood the answer that she gave later to Councillor McPherson's point around members helping. And I know Councillor McPherson was referring to the vaccinations, but I think Angela also touched on members assisting for the PCR kits as well. So I just wanted to ask, Chair, if I may, through you, of Angela, is it the case that any member of the public that wants a home testing kit has to go to South Street to get it, or is there going to be a facility for those that live on the western side of the district and not have to travel so far?
Thank you, Chairman, through you. In relation to the home testing kits, those are linked to the 11 to 18 age group for school testing. You will appreciate that the MTU, the mobile testing unit that's based in Rayleigh Leisure Centre, was put there specifically to enable secondary school age children to be tested, and the original plan was that they should be tested before Christmas and indeed before then returning to school. That's obviously now subsequently been superseded. The home testing kits, we're expecting a batch of 5,000 are to supplement the work that's being done at the Rayleigh Leisure Centre. So that's why it's at the other end of the district. The slots taken up at the MTU at Rayleigh Leisure Centre have been almost exclusively 100% take up, only dipped over the Christmas New Year period, and only then not by a significant amount. So the demand is being met from the west of the district by the MTU, and will be then also met in the east of the district through the home testing kits. We are expecting, because of the demand on the system, and I mean by that I mean the whole of London, South East and East of England, for the government to require us to continue to provide home testing kits, which, although you can still of course order these online, the reliance on the Royal Mail to deliver those has caused some challenges, particularly over the holiday period, and tests, of course, if they're not received by the lab in good time, are compromised. So the idea of having local drop-off and pick-up areas is that they are brought by courier. So it's our expectation that there could very well be a follow-up to this first 5,000 tests, and that more will come. And so we are actively preparing for that eventuality and exploring other opportunities and other sites across the district where we could increase the availability of these testing kits. But we are wholly dependent on them being provided to us. So what we're doing is working in shadow at the moment with a view to being ready to mobilise if more tests become available.
Thank you. I misunderstood. I thought they were for everybody. I didn't realise they were just for school-aged children.
This first 5,000, Councillor Wilkinson, are intended to be for that age group, because, as you heard the Prime Minister say yesterday, those particular age groups are the ones that are the key vector for the new variant of the virus as things currently stand. Going forward, it remains to be seen whether government will expand that to anybody who needs to get a test. And of course, it isn't just those children aged 11 to 18, it's also their families too.
Okay. Makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. Thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. Councillor Mrs. Shaw.
Thank you. Going back onto the testing kits, for the school age, I believe the schools have got the testing kits also ready for the children when they come back as well. Councillor Smith was saying this last night in his school, they've already got them, so they are around the district.
Those, can I just come back on that, Councillor Mrs. Shaw? Those are lateral flow test devices, and they are for teachers and for the children of key workers and vulnerable children, so children who are currently receiving face-to-face education at present. There's a suggestion by DFE that going forward they'll be used for daily testing for children who have been exposed as a contact to a positive test. But these are not the same as the PCR swab tests, which are the postal testing kits. Home testing
okay, they're not the lateral flow ones.
Yeah, the school ones are lateral flow. The ones we're looking to, and that is what the mega centre is also distributing, performing. And then the home testing kits are literally, you come in, you pick up a kit, you go home, perform the test, you bring it back to the drop-off site and it's collected.
Right, thank you. Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you, Angela. Thank you, Councillor Mrs. Shaw. Members haven't indicated to ask any further questions. We have covered this topic quite a lot. Members, that there's on page 6.12 of the report, paragraph 11.1, there is a recommendation, and that's for the committee to resolve to note this report. I hope the members will agree to note that. I think, again, just to reiterate what several councillors have said this evening, and in particular Councillor Wilkinson put it very eloquently and sympathetically, that it's okay to criticise, but it's not a criticism of any individual or anything that has or hasn't been done. This is a learning curve for everybody, for members, for staff, for officers, and for the general public. And I think at the moment, I think certainly in my opinion, it's clear that we are doing a very exceptional job in very difficult circumstances. And again, our thanks go to the staff at Rochford District Council and officers. And to end that, members, are you in agreement to note the contents of this report? And we look forward, Angela, to receiving future reports, which I'm sure will be the content of which will be ever changing. Members, are we in agreement to note the content? If not, can you indicate to speak? Councillor Hoy?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's for noting. I think I would just like it recorded, which obviously is being recorded, to note it that I'm noting it, but with reservations, and I hope they're addressed on the next report.
Certainly, Councillor Hoy. And Councillor Mrs Mason, you've indicated as well. I'm assuming that's possibly in agreement with Councillor Hoy. Councillor Mrs Mason?
Sorry, couldn't get the unmute up. Yes, I think we've all expressed some reservations, so I think we ought to note with reservation. Thank you.
Councillor Hookway?
Yes, Chairman, I'm in agreement with Councillor Hoy and Councillor Mrs Mason.
Okay. I have to say, to be honest, I think we can note that, if we can note that those specific members had reservations. I certainly don't at this moment in time, and I don't know. I don't think other members do either. Otherwise, they would have indicated to speak. So, I think we can note the content of that report and note the reservations that certain members, individual members, have. Thank you very much. Moving on to agenda item number 7, which is the key decisions document, and hopefully everybody has had a chance to have a look at the key decisions. There are 3 key decisions. 720, the first one, disposal of the former redundant Crown Hill public conveniences. I understand this report will go to the executive in February. Is that right? Yeah. Have any members got any questions? Not members, but if I can, Matt Harwood-White, sorry. It wasn't very clear.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to add on that point, Chairman, I just need to, I'll be briefing the new portfolio holder, Councillor Daniel Belton, meeting later this week to discuss progress on that report. It has been delayed, Chairman, so I need to speak with the team and the portfolio holder to update on the position of that disposal of that asset, Chairman. We're able to come back to the committee to provide a revised date, Chairman.
Okay, so just to clarify, on the key decision document, it says January 2021, but my understanding is that this will be presented to the executive in February. Is that okay, or it's anticipated to be February?
It won't be February, Chairman. I want me to discuss it with the portfolio holder first, please, if I may.
Okay. Thank you very much. Councillor Hoy?
I'm not muted. I was going to mute myself. Yeah, this is something I've been noting for a while on key decisions. It's been taking quite a while, and I see it's been pushed back again. It is something I've got some concerns about, and it's something I would, for warning, would possibly want to have a look at within the review committee when it comes forward, or when the report's in a state that it can come to the review committee.
Okay. Yep, that's fine. So thank you for making us aware of that. Councillor Mrs Mason.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I haven't had sight of the key decisions document. It's not on CMIS, so therefore I've not been able to see it. So could someone quickly, briefly tell me what's on it in case I have any concerns?
Yep, it's the disposal. If I just read the subject matter out to you on the key decision document, the heading of which is the disposal of former redundant Crown Hill public conveniences, And it says disposal of former redundant Crown Hill public conveniences subject to marketing and granting permission for a future leasehold agreement. And it's the decision maker, the executive. Like I say, originally and as stated at the moment on the report, it says January 2021, but as Matt Harwood White has already pointed out, that will be delayed.
Is that the
I
only?
understand it. No, I haven't got the others yet. I do understand. I understand that it's under the public documents on CMIS.
Well, I can't find it. I'm on there now. That's the only access I've got. I've got the report.
Okay.
And, the work plan.
Okay. If officers, I don't know. I can see officers having a look now. So if officers can just have a look at that.
Or if you could read out, if you could just read out the subject matters, then I'll know if I've got a query.
Okay. Moving on to the second item that's on the key decision document. That's 8/20. The subject matter title being leisure contract, and the description underneath to agree arrangements in respect of the leisure contract beyond the 2020-21 financial year. And my understanding is that decision has been taken. Matt Harwood White, are you able to confirm that?
Yeah, Chairman, that decision was taken at executive in December.
Okay, I haven't had any information on that, but I did ask Matt Harwood White a question on that about the car parking. Perhaps you could come back to me on that, Matt. I don't think it's necessary to bring it up now. Perhaps you could phone me tomorrow.
Absolutely, I will. No problem at all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mrs. Mason. Thank you, Matt. And the third and final key decision is 10/20. The subject matter heading is waste collection and street cleaning contracts. And the description under that is to agree arrangement.
Point of order.
Sorry.
Point of order, Chairman.
Yep. Councillor.
The decisions documents, they are on our website. They're where they always are under key decision documents.
Well, if you can tell me how to find them, that's
Yeah,
great. I'm on the meeting page.
I can tell you exactly where to find them. When you go into the Oxford District Council, you go to.
Let me go back. Actually, this is going to take some time.
Yeah.
If this is the final one, perhaps we can reserve. You can show me another time.
Okay, it is only 2 clicks to the document, just to clarify that for future.
District Council.
Yeah, that's it. And then you've got meetings, but you've also got key decisions document, and they've always been there as well.
Where's that?
On the right-hand side under the menu, it goes home, committees, decisions, key decisions document. Just click on there.
Okay, I think we need to just. I don't think that's for now.
I don't think that was very helpful. Sorry, Mr. Chairman, could you actually continue, because that would be quicker, and then perhaps an officer can explain to me what Councillor McPherson is trying to explain at a later date.
Yeah, where they're easily found. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor McPherson, for trying to help there, and thanks, Mrs. Mason. And I'm sure an officer will be in touch, Mrs. Mason, Councillor Mrs. Mason, to give you some advice. The third and final key decision was 10/20. I'll repeat, the subject matter heading was waste collection and street cleaning contracts. And the brief description is to agree arrangements in respect of the waste collection and street cleaning contracts beyond the 2021-22 financial year. And the decision maker, obviously the executive, and date when or period with this decision is to be made is February 2021.
Okay, thank you.
Marcus, is that okay, Marcus? Is that still on track?
Yes, it is. Yes, thank you.
Lovely.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chairman.
you, Marcus. Thank you, Mrs. Nathan. No other questions. So moving on to agenda item number 8, which is the work plan. And hopefully members have had a chance to review that. Any questions, members, on the work plan? There are none indicated, so I'll assume
Sorry,
not.
Chairman, I was trying to do my hand and I couldn't.
Oh, sorry. Okay, no, that's not a problem. Councillor Mr. Hoy.
Is Marcus able to say when the next meeting of the Green Spaces working group is going to happen?
Marcus, are you able to answer that?
Yes, so yes, I mean, discussion with the chair as to suitable dates, chair of the member working group, Councillor Mrs Mason, as to suitable dates. I believe we have the documentation that's required now. I think that was a delay.
I haven't.
but there was a couple
Well, I haven't seen the documentation, as you're aware, Marcus. I spoke to you.
I am,
yesterday.
yes. Yeah.
But I have
I hope
asked that to be forwarded to Councillor Hoy, and also the minutes, of course, need adjusting, which I am looking at to do, but I'm having difficulty because of the way they're presented again. But I'm hoping to be able to sort something out in a week's time.
So hopefully we'll be able to convene a meeting fairly soon. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, Marcus. Thank you, Councillor Mrs Mason.
You're welcome.
Okay, members, thank you very much for your time this evening. We'll close the meeting now. Stay safe and well, everybody, and hope to see you all again.